All right, hey, thank you for joining Men's Compass. I'm John Parker.
And I'm Dr. Daniel David.
And Men's Compass is basically a video series, web series, which it's dedicated to guys' mental health,
Right.
questions, concerns thereof, and really just us being able to give you some guidance, a compass,
Yes.
to help you figure
Yes.
out good mental health things, ways to live, ways
I
to
don't know
be.
that men know how to use compasses nowadays. We need
That is a
Boy
yeah.
Scout time.
Yeah,
okay?
that'll be an episode,
Right,
bringing
okay.
back the scouts
Right.
and why it's necessary. I actually have a watch that gives me,
Oh, yeah,
latitude,
nice.
longitude,
Yes.
directions or whatever, just in case the zombie apocalypse happens. I know how to get out of danger. Head
We're
north.
in Atlanta too, and
Yeah.
where the zombies really live.
That's true. That is true.
So-
That is true. Shout out Walking Dead.
Right, Walking Dead. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, today's subject we're talking about is self-esteem.
Yeah.
And what it looks like, what it means to have self-esteem. Really, and we really want to focus on this today because we feel like in our culture today, in the United States, for that matter, it's not a lot of positivity going on right now, especially in light of a
Right.
lot of the campaigns that are going on, a lot of different things that are happening that are kind of good for the bringing out the negatives that are happening, and pointing out some things that aren't good as far as sexual harassment, all these different things.
Right.
But men just aren't generally built up in the same way as women, I think, in our culture. And some would say that, well, it's not necessary because men are in power and da-da-da-da-da. But I know a lot of young men that wrestle with self-esteem. I know a lot of old men
Right.
that wrestle with self-esteem.
Right, absolutely.
And I have a son that I'm trying to raise, and I want him to have good self-esteem.
Right.
And we know that statistically speaking, and psychologically speaking, low self-esteem can kind of create poor mental health.
Right, absolutely. You have a daughter too,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have a son and a daughter, and I have a saying that we don't have to put down our sons in order to raise up our daughters.
Right.
We can raise them up equally, and I think that's what we need to do in our society. So yes, self-esteem is really what I call gasoline for the mind. And if you are low on gasoline, you're afraid to go out and venture out into the world because you never know if you're going to get back. And so self-esteem is how we evaluate ourselves, how we look at our own self-worth in the context of either the bigger picture of the world or in our families or in our relationships or at work, in our careers. So self-esteem is such a big, important thing for men to really work on. And it is a process, right?
Yeah.
So, that's why, we've decided to come in on a cold day like today out of the
Right.
snow
Yeah,
and
yeah.
do this quick video on self-esteem because we know that guys need it, and we work with men all the time, and they tell us about how their low self-esteem impacts them.
Yeah.
So self-hatred is one of those things.
Yes.
If we're overly critical, overly judgmental with ourselves, we're trying to be perfect. We're trying to do everything right, and so we think, well, I gotta be hard on myself. Right. In actuality, a lot of that is tears down the self-worth and makes us feel bad. We'll feel good when we achieve, but we'll feel really bad about ourselves when we don't achieve, or we think we're not living up to our full potential. So self-esteem can be part of mental health issues. I think it underlies depression and anxiety often in men that you and I both see.
Yeah,
Right?
I think it creates stress as well.
Right.
Especially one thing I try to tell guys is to avoid comparison when you're trying to work through self-esteem issues, is because if you're always like, well, Daniel, you're great and I'm not, or this person or that person or my dad or my uncle or all these people around me are doing these things, your self-esteem gets lower because you're putting yourself in this comparison box where you'll never meet their standard, or you'll never be as good as them, or you'll never succeed or achieve as much as them. And people don't know. They'll say that, comparison is just a way to garner motivation or to kind of get the steam rolling or give you a picture of where you want to be or where you're going. But comparison is just a thief of joy.
Right.
If you want to use comparison, it's maybe how you can accomplish a goal, maybe how somebody did it, the way they did something.
Right.
But if you're trying to actually actualize you as a human being to this other human being, you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage because you're not that person. And the way they got to their success, their fame, their fortune, their whatever, probably won't necessarily be the same exact way as you.
Right.
And you don't see that person when they're behind closed doors. You just see the public face, right? And they could be terrible people, right? Or have done unscrupulous things.
Right.
And you don't know what their life is like. And so if you're trying to compare where they are, what they're doing, or what they have, it's not going to be a win for you.
Yeah, comparative thinking. Actually, I was talking to someone the other day, and a young man. I was trying to get him to understand that he had really bad negative self image and self judgment, and he was constantly comparing himself to others. And I said, well, okay, everyone has their own life and their own path, and have you ever considered the fact that you may be comparing yourself? That's somewhat like a soccer player comparing themselves to a basketball player, and the games are different, and so misjudging that and judging ourselves because we're not great basketball players when we're actually playing soccer in life, right? I use that analogy to help guys understand that we don't need to compare. The only thing we need to do is to improve ourselves every day, be a better person than we were yesterday, right? That's sort of what I see in comparative thinking.
And it's funny because oftentimes it's not an apples to apples or orange to orange comparison, right? So you have a young guy whose dad was the all-star everything in high school and maybe even college, and they're forcing themselves to play sports when they're really good at playing the guitar or baking or or being an artist or a writer. You know what I mean? There's other areas, and so they try to fit themselves into this box that their parents or grandparents had, which doesn't make sense for them. And so then you have an unequal distribution of comparison thought, right? Because you can't apply your skill sets to their skill sets and try to do the same thing because you're not built the same way. And I see a lot of teenage guys that come and see me and they're just distraught because they're not their dad. And I'm like, yo, you have to stop keeping a list of what you can't do that your father did well, and start remembering the things that you do well, and having yourself as a model. Like, yo, like, man, I'm excited about the things I actually can do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Negative scorekeeping always bleeds out our it's kind of like having a leak in your fuel tank, right? Eventually the tank runs dry, and we often do that because we take tally of all the things that we failed at rather than all the things that we were able to succeed at or we're growing at, right? So definitely I think that's an issue among men. So what are some tips do you think you give, for you, what do you give men?
What I usually do is I start with self first, right? And understanding that, hey, sometimes it takes just a little shake up in your look, right? It may, you maybe need to take some professional photos, or just, nowadays any camera you get your hands on the cell phone can do portrait mode or whatever, and maybe update your profile pictures, right? Maybe get someone that you think dresses well. Maybe this is where you can put comparison in a good box, right? So, oh man, I like the way you dress. I like what you got going on. Where do you shop, or what do you do, or or some GQ? What do you look at to kind of get your style, or a reference
like a
point?
Positive role model,
kind
of thing.
For the dressing, but then also too for the role modeling in the sense of, hey, instead of comparing yourself, if there's someone I see that's in my industry or an industry I want to be in, how do I get to them, right? And so that can put yourself in a position where you understand what it takes to be where they are, so you don't self-deprecate when it comes to, I'll never be this, I'll never be that.
Right, absolutely.
So just make yourself look good, get a new hairstyle, keep your breath fresh, get some new photos, and get out and be around people. I feel like when people have low self-esteem issues, that's because they don't realize what real people are like. You know what I'm saying? People are messy, they got issues, they got drama, their teeth ain't always straight or white, you know what I mean? And so you just need to be around real people and have real conversations and real relationships with people.
Yeah, because we don't actually see what happens, when they go home and things like that. And so we compare to what we see on the outside, not on the inside, right?
What about you, Sam?
I like that. I often tell guys, hey, if you need a good role model to kind of build your self-worth on, one thing, here's an exercise you can do. Think of 3 guys that you admire, all right? And think about, they could be, someone you actually know, someone, long distance, maybe in a public figure, someone of historical acknowledgement, and also then and even fictional. And I'll tell you why this is important, because as long as you know enough about this individual, right, and their specific qualities that you admire, then I would ask you then to do the next part, which is to list 3 qualities that you admire in these individual men. Hopefully they're positive role models for you and for others. So for example, if you like that they have integrity, that they're honest, right, and that they are working, So you take 3 guys with 3 different qualities that you admire in these guys, and then you really work to integrate those qualities into your life. So you become a man of integrity. You become more honest with other individuals. You learn to work hard, and you take care of yourself, and you're responsible. Those are things that will lift us up and make us feel better about ourselves. And then you keep score around that stuff. The stuff that you're working towards, the stuff that you're trying to improve in your own life, I think it's been helpful. A lot of guys have come back and said, yes, I'm really getting a lot out of doing this exercise. So it's one exercise that I think that guys can really benefit from.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, good.
I'm ready to go practice these things today. I'm going to get your memoirs and a couple other, I think Gandhi, maybe you and Gandhi and MLK are like all the same.
Yeah,
so
right. Like I like John F. Kennedy. Of course, everyone has their own issues.
Yeah.
So Barack Obama, I really admired. And we may have to edit this part, but
you're good. You're good. I like your humble approach to me shouting you out in the same conversation with Gandhi and MLK. You're like, yeah, that's good. That's cool. I like that.
You were doing
yes,
that.
I said your memoirs. I said,
no,
is it okay?
I'm sorry. I didn't.
This guy. He's
no, you need to edit that.
No, nope, I'm not. All right. Well, listen, we had a brief conversation with you guys today. We're talking about good, wholesome, healthy self-esteem.
Right.
Practical ways to build that up, and ways in which we should move forward in our lives.
Right. And we'll come back to this subject.
Yeah, it's a good subject.
We haven't really said a lot on this, but hopefully you'll get something out of this, okay?
He wants to wax philosophical. Listen, guys, this is what this is about. The Daily Compass,
well,
Men's
I have to
Compass.
earn my pay here, don't I?
You do.
Okay.
But Men's Compass is about this. We get in, we get out, we give you the facts, the figures, and how to do it.
Right.
And then we're going about our business.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. I'm John Parker.
And I'm Dr. Daniel David. And please subscribe below, okay? Yep. And give us some likes and send us to some friends that you think might, benefit from this. Yep. All right?
That's it. All right. This has been the Men's Compass.